Do you ever feel like your brain is going to explode with questions and concerns about parenting, education, and what is right for you and your child?
Hi everyone, welcome to the Mindful Mummies podcast. I'm Bree.
And I'm Stina.
And we're sisters-in-law with backgrounds in education, and combined we have 5 very busy boys.
Our hope is to create a community for parents where we can learn, laugh, and support each other.
We'll be joined by special guests who inspire us and bring different perspectives to the table.
Thanks for joining us. Welcome to the Mindful Mummies podcast number 10. I'm incredibly excited and grateful that Megan and Sarah are joining us today on the Mindful Mummies podcast education series to talk about their work in outdoor learning, school gardens, and risky play. Sarah is not only one of my best friends in the whole world, she is a mom to 2 amazing boys, a talented quilter and crafter, an athlete, and a dedicated and passionate elementary school teacher. She has taught kindergarten, physical education, ESL, and outdoor learning in the classroom garden. We have been through a lot together over the years, from late French immersion, high school, weddings, diploma programs, having our first babies 6 weeks apart, spending almost every day of our first mat leaves together, and now not only we are friends, we get to watch our children be friends too. When Sarah tells me stories about her days teaching outdoors and in the garden, her excitement and love for her job is infectious. Megan is the mom of 3, wife to 1, and teacher to many. She has been an inspiration to me from the first time I met her teaching together at the same school over 10 years ago. Her commitment and passion to her teaching and children is contagious. I have always loved visiting her classroom and seeing what the latest activity and lesson she was up to. Most recently, I've had the experience of attending workshops with Megan's Classroom Gardener program, and once again was blown away by her knowledge, devotion, and joy for learning outdoors. She is currently working towards a PhD at UBC in the Faculty of Education in Curriculum and Pedagogy. Megan is the author of the Classroom Gardener Teacher's Guide, and she believes that just about any curricular content can be taught in a school garden. Megan also offers workshops, teacher professional development, and consulting on a wide range of topics with her Room to Play consulting services. She is a vocal advocate for free, risky, and unstructured nature play, who believes it's time for adults to go back to letting kids climb trees, jump off stuff, and #go play outside. Sarah and Megan currently teach outdoors part-time at a local K-7 public school and piloted a rethink of how we allocate prep time in our schools. They teach outside all day and do not have an indoor space to teach in. The children who participate in the Garden Outdoor Classroom program receive 100 minutes per week of outdoor learning in all weather and seasons. Get ready because we are about to dig deep into the garden of learning with these 2 incredible experts. Hi, Sarah and Megan.
Hi. Hi.
Welcome to the Mindful Mummies podcast.
Thanks for being here.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Woo! There's a leaf.
We love that you're outdoors in your natural environment right now. Looks like a beautiful day out there.
Certainly.
All right. Well, can you guys start off by telling us a little bit about your teaching environment and curriculum at the public school where you work?
So we're in our 4th year of teaching prep at the school. So for anybody who's not familiar with how the public school system works, teachers receive now 110 minutes a week of contractual time to do their prep in their classrooms. And so the kids need to be with somebody. And so 5 years ago, we sort of pitched, could that be done outdoors? And yeah, this is our 4th year teaching outdoors. So we're outside 100% all day. And then we get a new group of children that come out every 55 minutes.
Wow. So rain or shine, snow, freezing cold weather, you're out there. That's so cool. Yeah.
Wow.
So there's days where everybody says, you have the best job. But there's days where people say, oh, you guys.
Or you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
How do the kids respond to it? To like the extreme weather and all that? If there is any.
The most fun, I think. The snowy, cold days are the really fun.
Yeah.
They all come prepared mostly, and when there's something different, it's exciting.
Yeah.
And we have tarps and things, so we do some shelter building when it's really inclement weather. And for a lot of our students, they don't camp with their families, or if they do camp with their families, they certainly don't camp in the rain. So being able to just sit under a tarp and listen to the rain fall on a tarp is a really magical thing to do with them. And yeah, it ends up being a really positive space and place for kids to learn. And we teach across the curriculum. So they get their math and their science and their literacy and their art. And it's all done outdoors. And we just sort of go with whatever the season and the weather and whatever it is, we kind of work with it.
Wow.
Okay, so you're not teaching specifically only about outdoors. You're integrating the curriculum in an outdoor setting.
Yeah, it's an outdoor classroom. So we teach the exact same curriculum that they would be learning inside, but we teach it outside.
And what parts are you responsible for of the curriculum?
It depends on the teachers that we're working with. So we have 15 teachers in classrooms that we work with this year. And so we generally outline what we plan to cover for the year, and then teachers will specify, I'm going to be doing the water cycle, or we're going to be looking at earth materials or rock cycles. And so we'll pick up on those themes that they're covering inside the classroom and then go deeper with them in the outdoor classroom.
Amazing. Can you tell us a little bit about the classroom and what it looks like? I know you have some garden beds, and what else do you have out there?
I'll explain. Too bad we couldn't take you over there.
Yeah, we'll add some photos.
Yeah, we'll definitely provide photos.
We could add some pictures. Yeah, we've got a bunch of logs where the students sit in a circle when we enter the space. We've got some picnic tables so everybody could sit down and sit at table space. We have a mud kitchen, which is very popular, which is just play materials, a lot of kitchen materials, and some counter space and sinks. And we've got a dig pit, so they can just dig if they so wish, and about 20 garden plots.
Oh my gosh.
I just feel like my kid is like the perfect candidate for this kind of thing because he's just so busy. Like, wouldn't he he would thrive in this kind of environment. Yeah.
Definitely.
That's the most important piece of this work that we're doing, is that for a lot of children who really struggle or have challenges with sitting and listening inside the classroom, this provides a really positive, inclusive model for learning that makes everyone successful. So students that might otherwise have a hard time communicating their learning inside the classroom are their learning outside because they're able to really engage in the learning in a meaningful way. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And I forgot to tell you about all the loose parts that we have too. We have a bunch of logs and 2x4s and scrap wood and tires that they do a lot of building and balancing and creating with.
Amazing.
So amazing. So can I just ask quickly, what is the age range that you guys work with?
K to 7, and the kids that we take out are kindergarten to grade 4 this year. Last year we took out the grade 5s as well, but kindergarten to grade 4 this year.
Wow, and so how long are they with you throughout the day?
They come out twice a week for 55 minutes each time.
Amazing.
Cool.
And how do you prepare the kids for all kinds of weather? Like, how do you make sure that they're ready and prepared?
So one thing that we did is our school doesn't have inside days anymore. So even if it's pouring rain, all the kids come out at recess and lunch as well. So they are always prepared for just being at school and going outside no matter what, so that on the garden days, they also have all their stuff and they're ready to be outside. We have a lending library as well, where over the years we've collected jackets and boots and rain pants from people who've donated them or people who've managed to leave them in the lost and found at the end of the year, and kids who still manage to forget or don't have the stuff they need, we can stop and they can grab stuff on our way out to the garden.
So awesome. So awesome. So what were parents' reactions when this program started, when you started to teach outdoors and have the outdoor classroom?
It's been a resoundingly positive. I would say sometimes, especially new families to the school, don't really know what's happening, so they have lots of questions. But it's changed and shifted the culture of the school so much that it's just a big part of how our school operates. I would say because their kids are happy, the parents are happy, right?
Of course.
There's very few parents that have complained or even had questions about it. I would say it's really, really well received.
So, Megan, our goal is to provide resources for parents and parent sort of information, and our goal of the education series is to give parents some different perspectives and different views into different ways of teaching, different classrooms, different environments, different programs. So your website is such an amazing resource for parents and teachers. What are some of your favorite activities and lessons that stand out in your mind that you've taught since beginning teaching outdoors?
For me, my favorite ones are the lessons that aren't planned, the ones that just emerge organically through the curiosity or just the situation of the day or the season or the weather. So there's lots of lessons that we have planned that are lessons that happen. They're fine, but my favorite ones are the ones that just emerge organically, that we didn't actually plan to do, but just come from the interests and following the curiosity of the kids and the seasons. Yeah, those are my favorite ones for sure. And there's lots of them that I've blogged about on my website, and then on Instagram I tend to microblog on Instagram, so I'll post a photo of what we did that day with a little bit of a pedagogical explanation around why we did that, or what the object of learning was for that activity. Yeah.
Amazing. So if there's other teachers out there that are curious about it, they can follow you there too.
Yeah.
Like
Instagram.
discovering slug eggs, or when the bee and the spider are caught in the web, and the kids are just naturally interested in that, and that's what you spend the time doing.
And even things like we had some hay bales for the kids to play with. And over time, as the kids played with them, of course, they disintegrate like crazy. And that turned into like a month-long inquiry around nests and nest building, because the kids had used the hay to build nests that they could get into. And so then we ended up spending weeks looking at how birds and other animals build their habitats and their homes, and the structures and the complexity of a spider web and the complexity of a nest. And we hadn't planned to do that, but it ended up becoming quite a little inquiry on structures, and it was fun. And, it was really meaningful because it came from their own interests.
So cool.
Amazing.
Yeah. Sarah, you were telling me about making popcorn in the garden. How do you do that?
So cool. Did you know popcorn came from corn?
We did, but did the kids know?
Not all of the children knew that.
A lot of them.
A bit.
Mind-blowing. Yeah.
So we planted the corn in May,
Yeah.
June, and it grew over the summer. We harvested it in October.
It's a special breed of corn called pink popcorn. So
Okay.
we got it with West Coast seeds, and yeah.
Dried it in the shed for 2 weeks, picked the kernels off. Megan brought her camp stove, and popcorn was had in the garden. It's pretty amazing.
Amazing.
It's very fun. It's
Like
very
popcorn
fun when you get to eat the food we grow.
And we do that a lot. We cook a lot of the food that we grow, or we just eat it straight from the garden, which is also another sort of emergent learning opportunity. Sometimes we don't know what'll be ready, and we go out there and harvest it or cook it, or we wing things a lot out there.
We were smashing pumpkins today, so we were saving the seeds, and maybe a class later this week will get to roast the pumpkin seeds with us.
So cool. So cool. So my teacher brain and my parent brain right away is like, oh my gosh, how do you manage having a stove and hot and potential burning and in this outdoor space where there's cars driving past you, and how do you manage it? How do you do that? Oh my gosh.
Well, it's when we first of all, we work with kids year over year, right?
Right.
So we're not working with kids for one singular school year. Most of the children we've worked with since they were in kindergarten. And some of these kids, I even taught them when I was an enrolling teacher. So we've got existing relationships with these kids, which makes everything easier when you already know the children.
Mm-hmm.
The kindergartens, which is first year, we're a lot more structured in how things work. So we'll have sort of like a centers or a stations approach. So they'll be sort of organized in a way that gives us less chaos, because it's all very prescribed where the kids will be at each table doing an activity. And then if we're planting, or if we're cooking, or we're doing something that requires some significant supervision, we're only having to work with maybe 5 or 6 kids at a time. It's not 25 kids at a time. So
Okay.
we set up so that we're managing the crowd in a way that makes it safe for everybody, but also manageable for us. Yeah.
Plus, we're both out there together.
This year we are.
There's two of us together outside.
With 2 classes? at the same time.
Wow.
That's how we did it this year, yeah.
So this kind of leads a little bit into talk about risky play, which I know we're super curious about because we have, 5 busy kids in our household who love jumping off of things and being crazy. Tell me about risky play.
So risky play is an emerging area of research. So it's been around for about 12 years in the research literature. And what it is it just describes categories of play that children engage in when they're outside. And so it describes a kind of scary, funny feeling that you might have when you engage in something that's fun to do, but also still a little bit scary to do, right? Mm-hmm. So risky play has play with height or play with speed, things that kids already do. It's just a way of organizing how children experience risk. So as teachers, there's a difference between what's considered a hazard, so something that we know to be dangerous because we're the adults, right? Like our road with cars is hazardous. So we have fences and things that we do to try and mitigate the hazards. But risks are a level of participation that are chosen by the participant. So in risky play, you as an adult are really just holding space for trusting children to make their own decisions about how they use their bodies. Yeah. So if they want to climb up trees and play at heights, you guide them and allow them to do that with some parameters around local knowledge and the health of the tree and is it windy or different things that you would know to be hazardous as the adult, but then you allow children to engage in that kind of play with some parameters as a supervising adult.
Okay, so what does that look like in the outdoor classroom? Do you guys sort of engage in that sort of play?
Yeah, so I would never encourage risky play. Like we don't say now it's risky playtime. You're all going to take risks that you don't want. But if children will naturally seek out challenge that is thrilling for them, right? So lots of people have moved away from calling it risky play to calling it adventure play or thrilling play, because as soon as you say risk, people get anxious, right? They think, oh, it's dangerous. But risky play ultimately brings with it some characteristic or some possibility or potential physical injury. So if you're playing, play with tools is another category of risky play. So today, for example, we have the pumpkins out and the hammers and the nails and the screws and the screwdrivers and we have the saws. And so we've given them some direct instruction on how to use tools appropriately and talked about the difference between weaponizing a tool and using a tool for work. And so then after they understand how to use a tool, they're free to play with the tools. So that would be a category of risk that they can choose to engage in. But not all kids want to do that. Other kids choose other activities to play with or other things to do. So in the school setting, all it means is that we allow the kind of natural play that children engage in to happen. We don't say, no, you can't do that. We just make sure that they've got some parameters in place for... Yeah.
Awesome. When I grew up in False Creek up near Granville Island, and there was this playground called the Adventure Playground. Have you heard of this? Do you know the Adventure Playground?
That's what we call a lot of them now, yeah.
Yeah, and it was 40 years ago almost, but there was this huge, it used to be an industrial building that was open, and you could go in, and there was wood and tires and nails and tools, and we could just go and build stuff and build cool forts, and I remember loving it. Mm-hmm. And we were all so sad when it shut down.
That's much what our classroom is like. Our classroom's like that. So we leave it out all the time. So kids after school, weekends, they can still play with it. We put a lot of the tool material away because, it's expensive and it could become hazardous if it's not well maintained. Yeah. But all the building materials and the structural materials, we leave them out. Yeah. But yeah.
And so what do you do? You must have kids that are testing the boundaries and what happens if you have a child that's got a saw in his hand and he's,
weaponizing
it or how do you handle that?
Yeah. So I think one of the big benefits of holding space for risky play as a teacher is that it's really restorative for relationships with kids. Because when you say to a child, I trust you that you're going to make a good decision and I'm giving you this responsibility, most of the time they rise to the occasion, right? Because they feel this great responsibility and this respect that you've bestowed on them, that I'm giving you a tool to do work, and that's what it's for. And it's quite satisfying for children to do work, and it's really not a problem. We generally don't have issues with it. In fact, most of the kids who would have some challenging behaviors, once you give them the responsibility to take care of their own bodies and stop trying to have ownership over their body, and stop telling them how to use their body, it's really a positive enhancement to the relationship with the child. So yeah, we really don't have issues with it.
Cool.
Very cool. So Megan, your PhD is in this area of risky play. Right. Would you be able to tell us a little bit about what you're researching?
Yeah, so I'm interested in teachers' perceptions of risk. So we have this global body of research that tells us how beneficial learning and playing outdoors is, and how beneficial allowing children to take risks in their play is. But as a profession, teachers generally shy away from allowing children to play. Even another category of risk would be rough and tumble play. So that kind of wrestling, pushing, shoving play that we really discourage in schools would be a category of risky play that we allow for in the outdoor classroom, sword fighting and that sort of thing. And I'm interested in researching how teachers feel about that, and perhaps doing an intervention study to change how teachers feel about it, so that we can actually allow children to play how they need to be playing to be happy and healthy and productive people when they grow up.
Wow, so cool. So cool. I'm so interested.
Fascinating.
I do feel like as a teacher, I often am, like all the time, you're thinking about, I want to make sure that everyone's safe and everyone's okay, and you get anxious and you worry. And so having, that permission to sort of...
Children have a strong sense of self-preservation, right? It's very unlikely that children are going to put themselves in a situation of harm. Unless, of course, if you've got a child who you have a difficult relationship with, or a child who is acting out and they're climbing a tree, and you say, for example, hi, you say, stop, don't go any higher, and now you've turned it into a power trip, right?
Yeah.
What's the thing that child's going to do when you say don't go any higher, right?
Yeah.
They're going to prove to you that they can go higher just to show you you're not in charge of them, right? And now you've created a hazardous situation with that child by trying to exert power over how they use their bodies. So it's really important that children understand that they're in charge of their own bodies and they make their own decisions. And then together you work around what those limits are and you work it out.
Mm-hmm. So you guys are both parents. Megan, you have 3 kids. Sarah, you have 2. Yep. And I'm curious, as parents, what are your favorite ways to engage in sort of adventurous, risky play with your kids? If you want to give some recommendations to parents who might be feeling a little bit nervous about doing that sort of stuff with their kids.
Well, I think the most important thing is to never say be careful to a child, right? Because when you say be careful to a child, what you're saying is, I don't trust you, you're not competent, you're not capable, and you need my help to be successful, right? So that's a really powerful message that you're sending a child that they probably don't need to hear. So often, whether I'm teaching or whether I'm parenting, my response when I'm uncomfortable is to say, here's how I see this ending, right?
Right.
So if we're out on our boat and our kids are climbing up cliffs and jumping off, and I'll say, look, it's a long boat ride over some bumpy sea to get back to a hospital with a broken leg. So think about that when you're off that cliff. And, other than that, have fun, make your own decisions, right? And really giving kids the chance to bump up against their own comfort levels and make their own decisions about how they use their bodies. Because I think that sense of agency and that sense of autonomy over how they use their bodies is really important, so that later when they become adolescents and they have some freedom, they're less likely to take catastrophic risks because they've bumped up against harmless, benign childhood risks, right? Yeah. So if you're letting a child, ride their bike really fast down a hill that makes you seriously uncomfortable because they're going so fast down that hill, you can take some comfort in knowing that if they crash, that when they're in a car as a teenager, they're less likely to drive that car really fast because they've had an experience of what it feels like to, crash at high speeds. So it can.
That's a
in
very
theory,
interesting way of
preventative.
looking at it.
Yeah, I love that.
I love that.
My 2-year-old, he's got a scooter, and he like loves just going down hills at full speed on this little scooter, and it scares me so much.
Yeah.
And I constantly say, be careful, be careful, be careful. And now I'm thinking, what could I say instead? What can it, yeah.
So there are hazards in that, right? Like the road and the street, and he's 2, right?
So you would want to be really specific, right? So you would say, for example, there's cars on the road, and they're not looking for you. So instead of saying, be careful, be really specific. Say, look, there's cars that aren't looking for you, and so you need to be watching for cars so that they don't crash into you. Right? Mm-hmm. So specific instruction around what to be careful of is a lot more helpful than
be careful, yeah.
Olds are different than 7-year-olds.
Yes.
And those kind of decisions.
Yeah, definitely. So all of your kids are school-age kids. You would say that. So you're Sarah, what are your favorite risky, adventurous things to do with your kids?
Oh, well, I guess I just let them have the freedom to play how they choose, and then kind of pause them every once in a while to say, not this is how I see it ending, but like the consequences, what the consequences of this kind of play could be. Right? How could this end?
Right.
If you play like this, what could happen?
Right.
So if they've got sticks in the front yard and they're battling each other with the sticks, I'd pause them and say something like, you are agreeing to get hit in the face with that stick when you're playing like that. You know that could happen. Nobody's intentionally trying to do that, but that could happen when you play like this.
Totally.
So,
and what's the reaction? What happens when you do that?
I think the ability of the increase in self-regulation and the ability to start to regulate your own place in space and your own impact on other people is greatly increased when we let children play like this. Because they have to start paying attention. The stakes are much higher, and because it's a full sensory experience for them, they're much more likely to pay attention to what's happening around them and their impact on other people. So we see huge improvements in the classroom environment in children's abilities to self-regulate when we give them these large loose parts to play with. Mm-hmm. Because they have to be careful, because they realize very quickly that if they're going to be given this privilege of playing with these materials, they have to use them responsibly.
Right.
Stina, you'd asked something else about parents, and one of the other tips that I think is really important for parents around risky play is to never help a child beyond what their own physical capabilities already are. So, for example, if a child wants to be lifted up to the monkey bars, I would never lift one of my own children up to a monkey bar, even when they were little, because what you're doing now is you're putting them in a hazardous situation. You're actually putting them beyond their physical skill level, and that's when injuries happen, right? Mm-hmm. So when kids fall and they hurt themselves, it's often because they've gotten themselves into a space that's beyond their actual physical capability. So, and as teachers, we see that all the time. Little kindergartens will say, lift me up to the monkey bars.
Yeah.
Important that we say, well, you're strong and you can get yourself up there, right? And so you'll often see the people who are the most afraid of children taking risks are the first ones to lift them up and put them in these really sort of actually precarious positions, right? So, any child that wants to climb a tree needs to be able to get up that tree by themselves. I would never support them in any way in putting themselves into that situation. They can build their upper body strength to a time where they can hang and lift and pull, and now they're strong enough to actually use that material in a safe way for their body, right?
Yeah.
So that's why a 2-year-old, for example, is going to be playing very differently than a 9-year-old would, because the 9-year-old has a significantly greater body strength to get themselves into situations that a 2-year-old couldn't. So it's all very developmental as well, right? It's not like you're opening the doors for your toddler to be playing in the same way that a preteen would be. They're very different contexts.
Yeah.
Makes so much sense.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Classroom Gardener program as well. how is that different from what you're doing in the outdoor classroom? Can you tell us a bit about?
So school gardens are a part of what we do in the outdoor classroom here. So it's actually a big part of what we do. The Classroom Gardener is a program that we go and support schools and teachers who are looking for professional learning or professional development around how to use garden spaces as shared learning spaces in their schools. So it's just like we talked about the math and the science and the literacy and the art that can be taught in the outdoor classroom. The Classroom Gardener really focuses on using a garden as a space of cross-curricular learning and building capacity in a staff so that it's not just one teacher's sort of green thumb project off the side of their desk. It becomes like a library in a school, right? A library has a librarian, and people understand the inputs and the outputs of the library, but you generally have somebody who helps organize the library. And that's the role of the Classroom Gardener, is to build capacity so that all teachers know how to use it as a shared learning space. And then they become less reliant on external organizations coming in and running the gardens for them, because they can, it's just like the gym. They can go to the gym and teach PE, they can go to the garden and they can teach science or math or literacy. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So if teachers are listening to this and curious about incorporating more outdoor classroom style teaching and classroom gardens into their practice, what would you recommend they could do to go forward with some of these? Do you have any tips?
I think just starting small is really a big victory. You don't need, people often get really excited about forest school practices, but then they don't have a forest, and that's okay. You have a schoolyard. People get excited about school gardens, and then they say, oh, but we only have one little bag of potatoes. That's okay. Start with what you have, start small, and then over time it builds and gets bigger, and you develop your own competencies and comforts really as a teacher, and you start to develop a culture of learning with your students that makes teaching and learning outdoors really preferable and preferable. Start small. That's my advice. And
go for it. Just try something. Just say, I'm going to teach my math lesson outside today and see what changes. Or I'm going to try doing my quiet reading outside today, see what changes. Just little things.
And a community of learners helps really well as too. So having a professional learning community that you can connect to as a teacher. So on my website, there's under Learn With Me, there's different districts have different professional learning communities that teachers can join to connect with their colleagues and learn more about what people in their own district are doing, because each district has different cultures and restrictions and supports in place. So working with teachers in your own district is really helpful as well.
Can I ask you about Kentucky?
What's that? About Kentucky?
Do we have time to talk about Kentucky? What do you think?
Yes, we do. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we had a great time in Kentucky. That was the North American Association for Environmental Educators conference. It was great.
So you guys were there as teachers going to learn for your district, and then also you were presenting. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So we talked about outdoor play with loose parts. So that was exciting to share that, and it was neat.
This is a conference. Okay.
So, just for people who don't know what loose parts are, what do you mean when you say loose parts? What are some examples?
So loose parts, it's a sort of a theoretical framework of how we can use materials to support creative or imaginative play or playful learning. And it just means simply that the material does not have any prescribed use before it is picked up and used by a child. And with the theory of loose parts, here's a loose part, there's an acorn. So you can play a little game. You can say it's not an acorn, it's
suitcase.
It's a suitcase, or it's not an acorn, it's a nose, right? Or it's not an acorn, it's an earring, right? So you have different ways that loose parts can be used to support imaginative and creative play. And materials that are prescribed. So if it's a familiar toy that from a story, like a Disney character or something, or the children will use those materials to tell familiar stories. So that's considered to have what's called a low affordance of play. But it's still playful. It's still small world play. It's still very valuable play.
Okay.
But when you use loose parts, that they have a higher affordance for imaginative and creative play. And it's a really great way to engage kids in learning across the curriculum. We use them in math and science and art and literacy. We use them in everything here.
Amazing. So when you were in Kentucky, you guys visited some outdoor spaces, outdoor classrooms. What were some of the coolest things you saw?
We went to a children's garden.
Yeah.
It was good.
So they had a river that the children are welcome to play in, take their shoes off or on, and just explore. They had a lot of kind of shade sails because their temperature is quite different. So they had a lot of places where kids could go in really hot weather, and maybe that was over top of the river, or they had one over top of a sand pit. They had a really nice wishing tree where the students or the children that visited could make wishes and hang it in the tree. They had a miniature train going around the whole thing.
The whole garden, yeah, that was really nice.
Wow.
Misters blasting off.
And they had a nice garden space. They had lots of food that they were growing and perennial crops as well, and lots of play areas. They had their sort of pioneer shelter type play areas that were connected to their own place and heritage. It was really nice. It was one of the better children's gardens I've ever seen. It was really well done. It was big, spacious, well considered. It was good.
So a lot of our listeners are local from the information we know. And are there any local garden outdoor classroom learning spaces that people could go visit that you would recommend in the Lower Mainland?
Well, there's lots of public spaces, outdoor classrooms wise,
or just for parents and teachers, if they're curious to go look and have a see, what would you recommend, or any favorite parks that you could go to with your kids if you're a parent?
Well, the Terra Nova playground in Richmond is a really nice park, and the nature in Richmond, the nature park is also built in a new sort of adventure type playground.
Okay.
So those are really nice. Science World in Vancouver has opened up their risky play and loose parts area as well. They've got an exhibit on that as well right now. So that's worth visiting.
Cool.
Yeah. So they've got a whole exhibit on loose parts and risky play there right now. So there's lots happening. Typically, when you're in an outdoor classroom, there's some intent. So a lot of our materials would be locked up. They wouldn't be available for people to. We don't leave a lot of our teaching materials out, although the loose parts are out and available for people to play with.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think, is there any questions you guys have for us? Anything else you want to add?
I wanted to just quickly add, where can people find you guys?
Yeah, tell us about.
So I share out what we do in the outdoor classroom on Twitter and Instagram, Pinterest, Facebook, and the handle there is Room to Play. So ROOMTOPLAY.
Okay.
And then on Facebook, it's roomtoplay.ca. And then I have a website. My blog is meganzeni.com.
Okay.
And there's lots of writing there. Sarah writes.
Oh my gosh, I had so much fun on your website. I hadn't really checked it out in a very long time, and there's so many resources on there. It's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the description. We'll put all that information in the description for people, for sure.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for coming on today. It's been really fun talking to you.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Watch your children play this afternoon.
Seriously, I'm really thinking this kind of thing would be so perfect for one of my children in particular. So thanks for educating me on all of this. And yeah.
Uh-oh. We're losing power.
Bye.
Uh-oh.
All right.
We're
That's a
losing
good time
our
to say
batteries
bye.
dying.
Okay. Thanks, you guys.
Bye, guys.
And we're good. Thank you so much to Sarah and Megan for joining us today on the Mindful Mummies podcast, episode number 10. We will be sure to post all the links and information that was discussed in this episode on our Instagram and our website. We hope you enjoyed. Please make sure to always send us any questions or comments you might have for any of our guests or for us.